Network.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Hear it live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Fox News Talk 1240.
I've not been really involved in the law enforcement process for any amount of time whatsoever. I've been pulled over a few times. I've never been arrested as far as I remember. I've never been fined anything over $200 or so just for speeding and whatnot. And really, I've not gotten in a lot of trouble. I'm not the sort of person who would get in a lot of trouble and get caught. Most of the things that I do that are very illegal are also not really cared about and are not really anything that any police officer, any average police officer would even know is illegal or what it is anyway. So I'm not one who does bad things. I'm not one who does illegal things very much. I'm just a regular guy like everyone else. Fortunately, I've never had to go to, court or anything like that. Not even as a witness. I've never been a juror, although I'm eligible. I'm a registered voter in Catoosa County, which I don't remember how that happened, but I am somehow. It must have been when I got my driver's license. So I can't really relate to a lot of these stories where you hear about guys who are on the defense and they or their attorney has to argue that evidence which was brought up against them was done illegally. Fortunately, we have interpreters in the form of people who write really good articles, and we have the basic understanding of the law, which a lot of us can get just by reading, legal books and that sort of thing. Well, this case is one that is touchy, we'll say. So we can all agree that there are certain things which are reprehensible no matter what. No matter what the circumstances are. Let's set an example. Let's say I kill somebody. Now, from that basic sentence, I killed somebody, you're probably thinking I'm in the wrong because I killed somebody. But there are examples where that's not necessarily true. Somebody broke into my house and I killed somebody, right? Somebody broke into my house and I shot them because I was defending my house and my family, as an example. Or I was being robbed on the street and I had a CC, concealed carry weapon, and I killed somebody defending myself. Now, we can make arguments that, well, maybe your wallet wasn't worth it, but maybe I was afraid he had a knife and would kill me after he took my wallet. Whatever. Using that as an example, we can say that I killed somebody isn't always necessarily an evil or illegal thing. Now, it's not a favorable thing, but it's not necessarily always an illegal or even a evil thing. There are certain things that are legal that are evil, and there are certain things that are illegal which are not evil. But one thing that we can all agree on, and I know this is a rough subject, but one thing we can all agree on that is reprehensible no matter what is the possession of child pornography. Now, I know that we don't want to talk about that because that's a really touchy, iffy, icky, and disgusting, morally reprehensible subject. So we're not really going to talk about that as the subject, but this is what we're talking about, right? Like, this is the crime which this man is being accused of. So we can all say this is a bad, awful, reprehensible thing if he's found guilty. Now, the people who are investigating this crime have a responsibility to gather evidence in a correct way, to gather evidence in a legal way, to gather evidence in a way that does not break any laws, because there are procedures. You ever watch, the police procedural TV series, Law and Order? Lots of people love that. Watch CSI Miami, that sort of thing. And sometimes you'll see evidence has to be thrown out because they got it illegally. Now, if your key evidence is achieved outside the bounds of the law, that has to be thrown out, and it can't be used in court, which means that your perp may go free, even though he's guilty. The judge knows he's guilty. The jury will probably know that he's guilty, but this evidence has to be thrown out because somebody screwed up or somebody forgot to read their law book or the police manual, whatever they use, and now this evidence can't be used. And unfortunately, this happens more often than not. And the thing about it is, judges have to be kind of fair. Judges have to make that call. Well, this evidence was achieved illegally. And this is weird to say, but thank goodness that they do sometimes, because judges have to be consistent on that, or rather, judges should be consistent on that. So this is the second time this has happened, by the way, according to Ars Technica. A second federal judge has now invalidated a search warrant, which authorized the search of a suspect's computer via a Tor exploit. Now, this means that Tor, otherwise known as the onion router, is a method through which you can obfuscate your internet activity. It's not perfect, And that's oversimplifying it, but that's essentially what it does. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're doing anything wrong. Just because you don't want to be found doesn't mean you're doing anything illegally. It's like you want to hide a purchase birthday gift for a loved one. You're not doing anything wrong. You just don't want them to find out you've done it. Right? Just as an example, there's lots of things that you would do that you don't want other people to know about that aren't necessarily wrong. I don't want you to know every time I go to use the restroom. Right? It doesn't mean I'm doing anything wrong in there. It just means I don't want you to know what I'm doing. So tour is not necessarily a wrong thing, and it can be used and is used by journalists a lot to hide from oppressive regimes. There are journalists out of China which have used Tor to great effect to send really good articles overseas to hear good stuff. So Tor is not a bad thing in and of itself. It's a tool. It's like a gun. It's a tool. We all understand, hopefully, that guns are not bad, evil objects in and of themselves. Knives are not bad, evil objects in and of themselves. It's how you use them. And Tor is the same way. You can use Tor for awesome leaks on government activity, or you could potentially use Tor to do very illegal things like obtain child pornography or other such nasty things. Well, this is the second time now that a federal judge has had to invalidate a search warrant because of, well, less than legal methods that were used. So for now, the case remains live, but absent a successful government appeal, it will be quite difficult for the case against Mr. Scott Atterbury to go forward. A week ago, a federal judge in Massachusetts made a similar ruling and similarly tossed the relevant evidence. The Massachusetts magistrate judge and now the Oklahoma magistrate judge came largely to the same conclusion, that only more senior judges, known as district judges, have the authority to issue out-of-district warrants because the warrant was invalid ab initio, or from the beginning, at the initiation of it, same route. So these different judges have made these ruling is the word I'm looking for. So any evidence that resulted from that search warrant must be suppressed because the search warrant was not a legal one. So to sum it up, the FBI conducted a global sting operation by serving malware to thousands of different computers without first obtaining proper judicial authority, says Ahmed Gapur, I hope I said that right, who's a law professor at the University of California in Hastings. That's what he told Ars Technica via text message, saying whether this was due to gross incompetence or an expectation that the courts would grant a free pass, the FBI played fast and loose with this one, and we may see more cases getting thrown out as a result. Now, does this mean that enforcement of child pornography laws is a bad thing? No. Does this mean that prosecuting people after they've allegedly obtained child pornography is a bad thing? No. Does this mean that granting a search warrant on a wide and broad basis is a bad thing? Yes, it does, because that's not legal. We're talking about a judge making a warrant or issuing a search warrant for jurisdictions which he has no jurisdiction over. And the Fourth Amendment is quite clear about that. No warrant shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation. Right? And how can you have a probable cause supported by oath or affirmation for all these thousands potentially of computers? It doesn't happen. So obviously someone messed up here, probably a judge in this case, or the FBI should have known not to ask for that search warrant anyway. Now, this is not the first time this has happened. It's not the last time this has happened. In fact, an article from just a few days ago says basically exactly the same thing that this one does, except a little bit different. This one is another case where a judge has ruled that even though this guy was likely guilty, according to the judge, a murder suspect who's found via Stingray, the case against him has to be thrown out because the judge says he can't play what if with the Constitution. Now, this is an example yet again of a good judge because it's a controversial call, right? Where you have information about a suspect and you know in your gut this guy is guilty, but you have a duty, you swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. And even if that means throwing this case out, because it's not the judge's fault, and it's probably the enforcement agency's fault for getting information in an illegal way. This happened in Baltimore, same place where The Wire is set, funnily enough, pretty appropriate. A Baltimore judge has tossed crucial evidence obtained via Stingray in a murder case. The trial is set to begin this week. According to the Baltimore Sun, local police used a device known as a cell site simulator, which we can talk about for hours. We'll spend maybe 15 minutes on it, to locate the murder suspect in an apartment near his victim. In 2014, investigators used the Stingray to locate the suspect, Robert Copes, who allowed them into his apartment. There, amid cleaning supplies, including bleach and the phone which they were looking for, police found the blood of Ina Jenkins, who was 34, in Copes' apartment. Jenkins' body was found dumped across the street, according to the Baltimore PD. Now, this sets a pretty clear case, right? You've got the guy. He's in his apartment, or he's with the phone, which is in his apartment. You found the blood of the murder victim, and the murder victim is right across the street. Seems pretty cut and dry. The police can lay down and say, okay, Copes is the guy. But they used an unconstitutional method to obtain that information, so it has to be thrown out. Now, this is not the judge's fault that he has to make this be thrown out. This is the fault, again, of the enforcement agency or whoever granted the bogus search warrant for asking for this information in the first place, because they had to know this has to be thrown out. And this happens all the time. There was a case not too long ago, again, in Erie, Pennsylvania. I have family up there in Erie, Pennsylvania. Now, I know this is Chattanooga, so Erie, Pennsylvania is a bit of a ways away. But there was a story out of Erie, Pennsylvania, where almost exactly the same thing happened. But the difference is that this court was actually bound, or they said that anyway, the police agency said it was bound by a non-disclosure agreement, which was issued by the FBI. Weird stuff is going on with Stingray. And let's talk about Stingray for a second. What is it? Because it's not an old story. Stingray sounds like it should be an old story because we've heard about it years ago, but it keeps getting fresher and fresher every day as more and more stories come out about it. Stingray is a brand name. It's kind of like Kleenex for nose tissue, I guess is the generic word for it. Like you can get Puffs nose tissue. You can get Kleenex nose tissue. You can get any number of other probably great value nose tissue, I think is the way you say it. I don't know. It's not packing tissue. I don't know. But you can get, it's not toilet tissue either. You can get nose tissue from any number of manufacturers, but you will always, because of really good marketing, say, would you hand me a Kleenex? Because that's what everyone says, because it's good marketing. Like, okay, example, here in the South, the marketing is amazing because if you ask for a soda, it's almost universally known as a Coke, depending on how far down south you go. Went to Louisiana, everything is a Coke. Root beer is a Coke. Pepsi is a Coke. I don't know how, but that's how it is. That's how strong the marketing is. Good stuff. Coca-Cola has a bunch of genius marketers. They're to be admired if you're in the advertising business. Them and General Mills and a few other companies are just top tier when it comes to advertising. Genius people over there. But Kleenex is kind of the same way. The reason I say that is Stingray is a brand name. But whenever we talk about cell site simulators, they're almost always called Stingray. Whether or not they actually are Stingray, I don't know. But Stingray is made by the Harris Corporation, which we in broadcasting are pretty dang familiar with because we've probably got Harris equipment somewhere around here. Harris makes tons and tons and tons of different broadcasting equipment, receivers, transceivers, probably some microphones because why not, amplifiers, you name it. Harris makes it probably. Harris is also a really big government contractor because obviously government and local government, state government, federal government, military needs to get equipment because they don't build any of their own gear. The FBI doesn't build anything. The Army even, unless we're talking about the Army Corps of Engineers, doesn't build anything when it comes to equipment. So every government agency is like that. The police don't build their own guns. They don't build their own Glock 20s. It doesn't, or Glock 18s, I suppose. It doesn't work that way. You know, they buy it from a contractor. Harris is a contractor, government contractor. And what the cell site simulator does is it acts like a cell phone tower. So what happens is your phone will connect to the strongest signal in the area, which is good for you in terms of your signal, but not so good when it comes to surveillance because the cell site simulator pretends to be a cell phone tower. Your phone seeing, because the phone doesn't know. The phone just sees in its little ARM processor brain, it says, oh, there's a stronger signal. I'll connect to that. And then when it does, it's now connected to the cell site simulator, which is then recording all the information going through it. Now, previously, they used to say, oh, well, it doesn't record voice messages. And they used to say, well, it doesn't actually record text messages. That's been debunked many times. They used to say, well, it only records location information and metadata, and we're pretty sure that's not true. The other shady thing about cell site simulators or Stingrays is oftentimes when police departments are given them, they're actually asked for a non-disclosure agreement. They're asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement with the Harris Corporation, meaning that they can't give out information about these Stingrays when asked about them. Now, again, if that's not a big deal, I don't know what is. That's like if the police sidearms, you know, it's like if the Chattanooga Police Department had to sign a non-disclosure agreement with Glock down in Marietta, I believe. is where they make those, down in Georgia anyway, saying, you can't talk about the Glocks to anybody. You can't talk about your sidearm. Or Beretta does the same thing. Or Dodge with the Charger. You can't talk to anybody about the specs of your Dodge Charger. You can't even acknowledge that you're using a Dodge Charger. It's stupid. But that's what happens with Stingray, because they want to keep this a secret. Because if this technology gets out and if people know that it's a thing on a wide-scale basis, it's going to cause an uproar. People are going to be upset. And fortunately, you have organizations, you have news agencies like Ars Technica, which I don't agree with everything Ars Technica publishes. It's just like any other newspaper. Have you ever agreed with everything the Chattanooga Times Free Press has published? Probably not. I haven't. But there's good stuff in there, just like Ars Technica. There's great reporting on Ars Technica, even though I don't agree with everything. And thank goodness, though, for these news organizations like Ars Technica. You're not going to see this on Fox or CNN. I saw one mention of it one time, and they quickly moved on without ever explaining what the heck a Stingray was. So is a Stingray device being used in Chattanooga or in our greater Tennessee Valley, Chattanooga metropolitan area? Well, possibly, actually. Maybe. Because, again, they signed non-disclosure agreements, so good luck finding out. I'm not a resident of Tennessee, so I can't file a Freedom of Information Act request, although I'm working on drafting one so that it can be filed through a friend of mine who actually works for a privacy, what's the word for it? I guess a nonprofit is what it is. But anyway, we're working on that. And we want to find out, because this is especially interesting to us here in Chattanooga, because keep in mind, the State of the City address was just a few days ago, where Mayor Andy Burke made an announcement about how he's spending $1 million of city money on new infrastructure to help the city a little bit. You probably heard about it in the Minute News Break. So the mayor now of Chattanooga is investing $1 million using the gang violence as the reasoning. Now, that's pretty sound reasoning. And I'm not saying that he has an ulterior motive. But with money like that being spent, it does make you wonder what all goes into that. I really want to read about what all that money is being spent on. Every single little item I want to know. Because we have a right to know what the police are using in terms of equipment. It's not like, well, criminals will know. Yeah, but regular people will know too, so that we just have an idea of how our money is being spent. Because if you ever paid sales tax in Chattanooga, your money's going towards this. If you ever have lived in Chattanooga for 5 seconds, your money's going towards this. So we have a right to know how our money is being spent. And I'm very interested to see what's going to be going into this $1 million, or what's going to be coming out, I suppose, of this $1 million that Mayor Burke is wanting to spend on new equipment for the police forces. Now, what I've read is going to entail security cameras. It's going to be entailing new infrastructure for the police themselves to communicate better, which is, police do need to communicate amongst themselves, so I can understand that. Security cameras, I don't know. Because, again, this is potentially a sacrifice of security in order to obtain, a sacrifice of liberty in order to obtain security. And you know what they say about that. You deserve neither. So what's going on here? Well, we're going to be looking into it as the days go by, because, again, the whole plan hasn't been published yet. I don't think even Mayor Burke knows all the details yet. It's still being drafted by his office. Apparently, we're going to know more about it next month sometime. So we'll look into that as soon as we find out more. But again, this could potentially cause more problems than solutions, because as we just saw, a case has been thrown out before because of the usage of these devices. So ask the question, is it really worth it to use them? Is it really worth it? Because you're going to have someone who doesn't know how the law works who's going to use it without a proper warrant, and the case has to be thrown out, just like what happened in Baltimore here, which is ironic because, again, The Wire was filmed there. Again, according to the Baltimore Sun, the Baltimore police had a court-approved pen register, which is a legal authorization to use the Stingray. However, that is not the same as a search warrant, which requires probable cause. Now, if I know that, and I'm certainly not a legal expert, I know there's a difference between a pen register and a search warrant. So shouldn't the cops in Baltimore know that? And probably they did, because they probably knew they didn't actually have a warrant, but they probably figured, we're not going to get caught. And what are they going to do? Cancel the case? We got evidence on the guy. And I know when you're a cop and you seem like you've got the guy, you want to get the guy, right? You've got him dead to rights. What's the search warrant going to do? You have to go through the legal process, though, because, again, a judge can throw it out and be perfectly legally sound and even morally sound in doing so, because the Constitution strictly says, and they're bound and sworn to the Constitution, so are the cops, they're sworn to say, well, the Fourth Amendment doesn't, you've broken the Fourth Amendment here. You can't just say, well, the Fourth Amendment doesn't apply because we got him dead to rights. It doesn't work that way. So the judge says it was nonetheless an unconstitutional search. I can't play the what-if game with the Constitution. That's what Circuit Judge Yolanda Tanner said in court on Monday, that she is suppressing the evidence with great reluctance, I should say, saying that the man Copes is likely guilty. That's the defendant in this case. So even the judge is saying he's likely guilty, but you broke the law in getting his stuff. And let's not pretend, well, this is just a paper crime. It's just a breach of a little bit of information, whatever. It's not a big deal. No, this is a big deal because this is a constitutional violation. It's not a city code violation where everyone breaks one of those. This is a constitutional violation of the Fourth Amendment perpetrated by the cops. Now, yeah, maybe for a good cause, but again, technology should be used constitutionally. Just because you got new toys doesn't mean you can suddenly break the law. We'll talk more about this in a few minutes right here. Hot News Talk Radio and Binary.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Finding just the right place to live can be a daunting task. Stop your search. In Chattanooga, the place to live is Cross Creek Villas for under $1,000 and available for immediate move-in. You can enjoy this 2-bedroom split layout, over 1,000 square feet, 9-foot ceilings, an extra-large patio or balcony. And don't forget to ask about their preferred employer program. Cross Creek Villas is a gated community, offering a 24-hour fitness facility, a beautiful pool and hot tub, and Cross Creek Villas is pet-friendly. Stroll the pet park with your best friend and enjoy the free use of their business center and clubhouse. Plus, if you mention you heard this on the radio, your application fee is free. Cross Creek Villas, close to downtown off of Highway 58. Go to crosscreekchattanooga.com. That's crosscreekchattanooga.com. Or call 894-0446. That's 894-0446. Redefine the way you live at Cross Creek Villas. Go to crosscreekchattanooga.com or call 894-0446. Cross Creek Villas.
MLS 2239. What would you do with all that cash? Listen up, y'all. Ben Phillips here. Home Rate Mortgage. 805-9100. $1,200. That's how much we just put back in a Saudi Daisy family's pocket per month. All they did was pick up the phone. 805-9100. That's 805-9100. Get that quick quote now. 805-9100. HomeRateMortgage.com. Do you want to achieve the American dream in 2016? Listen up, y'all. I'm Ben Phillips with Home Rate Mortgage, 805-9100. We just helped a police officer purchase his first home in East Brainerd. Now he's grilling and chilling on his back deck. The American dream. You could achieve it with no money down options. Why wouldn't you call? 805-9100, HomeRateMortgage.com.
Shake, shake, shake it at Five Guys Burgers and Fries. The most delicious and unique milkshakes. How about this for delicious and different? Add freshly cooked bacon to any milkshake.
Is that even legal?
You bet your milkshake and booty it is. Chocolate caramel bacon shake. Coffee caramel shake. All hand blended. Shake, shake, shake it. Down at Five Guys Burgers and Fries. Just about any flavor shake that you can imagine. And they are delicious. Get your shake, shake, shake on at Five Guys Burgers and Fries. Five Guys Burgers and Fries, located at Hickson at North Point. Gun Barrel at the Walmart Center. Downtown 4th and Broad. And in Cleveland at Keith and Stewart. Shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
We do the best quality work. We have the best customer service, the most competitive prices around.
Cell Surgeon, a painless operation to fix your sick device.
Well, if you have a cheap charger or something that's not really designed for your phone, it can mess with your battery. It can actually fry your phone. So you need to make sure you have a quality product that's going to be designed for your phone.
Cell Surgeon, your smartphone doctor's in the house at the Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
If you charge it in the morning and, by noon, it's at, 50% under normal use. That means your battery's pretty much dead. And once you've reached that point, it starts to deteriorate.
Cell Surgeon, call 423-668-0100 or go to cellphonerepairchattanooga.com.
We do free estimates. If your phone's not working properly, bring it in. We're more than happy to take a look at it and diagnose it and see what we think is wrong with it at no charge. Most phone repairs can be done in 30 minutes or less.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
Don't take it in the bathroom. Don't ever put it in your back pocket. And don't charge your phone while you're sleeping.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Call 423-668-0100 or go to cellphonerepairchattanooga.com. That's cellphonerepairchattanooga.com. Cell Surgeon, your smart device doctor is in the house.
Hi, I'm Sabrina with Sabrina Realty Associates. Now is a great time to sell your home. In our area, inventory is at an all-time low, which translates into higher sales prices. Call us today at 423-499-7780 to set up a free consultation and discuss our unique and aggressive marketing programs. We will provide you with a free market analysis to determine the right value of your home. Call us today at 423-499-7780 or visit our website at sabrinarealty.com.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. Another shooting has been reported in the Chattanooga area, this time in East Ridge. A shooting was reported to the police on the 600 block of South Germantown Road. A victim appeared at the Park Ridge Hospital overnight. It's not clear if this shooting is gang-related. Well, the cost of repair for the Wilcox Tunnel has apparently gone up by about $10 million. City Transportation Director Blythe Bailey said that the higher estimate is based on some recent soil samples. The results of the testing will add significantly to the cost. The city has applied for a federal Tiger grant, and the price tag has been put at $54 million. That price has risen to $64,676,000. Chattanooga Mayor Andy Burke is wanting to spend $1 million to buy crime-fighting cameras along with other IT infrastructure. Some of that infrastructure will allow for police officers to do reports in the field, and apparently cameras will also be going up elsewhere in the city to help identify criminals and to stop crime before it happens. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Warming up out there for the afternoon. Becoming breezy as well. Highs mid-80s. An isolated late shower or storm possible tonight. A few more widely scattered showers and storms will march through lows into the lower 60s. After a morning shower, slowly drying out Thursday, near 85. Upper 80s expected Friday. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world famous sauce. Open daily, locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's, it's always good. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare.
On AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
When the weather turns bad, turn to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. On the net, hotnewstalkradio.com. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. From the Hot News Talk Radio Weather Center. Chattanooga, we've got you covered. When the weather turns bad, the Tennessee Valley turns to Hot News Talk Radio.
Go, 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 go. You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
There's something that drives me nuts and always has and always will. And it's something that probably you've not even thought about because it's something so dumb. It's this high and mighty attitude about certain things that certain people have, especially in legislature. Okay, I'll give you an example. Smoking. All right. Now, we all know I don't know of anyone who says outright, unironically, smoking is good for you, right? Like I've joked about how smoking is great for you. And I'm not a smoker. I'm not, cigars once in a while, yeah. Friend's wedding, had Cubans in Canada, great stuff. But I'm not like a regular pack-a-day smoker or anything like that. I'm not. Never have been. That I remember. So, it's not like I'm somehow defending it because I'm wanting to defend myself. I'm really not. And I'm not someone who's going to say, well, there's this negative stigma about it because it's not nearly as bad as everyone says, whatever. Because we all know that there are huge health risks involved with smoking. We all know that it's not good for you. We all know that it's horribly bad for you. You'll ruin your lungs. You'll ruin a lot of things. You can get throat cancer. You can get mouth cancer. You can get other cancers. We all know it's bad for you, right? It's horrible for you. But I hate that high horse mentality where legislators will raise taxes to oblivion because, well, we're just trying to protect people. Look, okay, people are going to smoke no matter what you do. You know, they keep talking about, well, we're trying to stop this next generation of smokers. You're not gonna, because it doesn't work that way. That's like in the 70s or whenever they started the war on drugs. I think it was the late 70s, early 80s. They started the war on drugs. They're like, we're going to stop drug users. This next generation of kids isn't going to be a bunch of drug users. Guess what? Marijuana usage has probably gone up, actually, since the war on drugs started. And it'll probably continue after the war on drugs ends. Smoking is bad for you. We all know it. In fact, smoking, we have to thank actually for a lot of marketing that we use today. You can thank goodness for Lucky Strikes and General Mills cereal, right? Like I was talking about marketing before. These different products basically invented modern marketing. And thank goodness for cereals and smoking, because we wouldn't have half the marketing methods we have today. But nevertheless, we all know it's bad for you. And we don't need a government study telling you every single day and ads from the ad council every other day telling you about how smoking kills. Don't smoke around your kids. Don't smoke outside around other people. Don't smoke in your backyard because you might set a house fire. All this different stuff. Look, we get it, man. I get it. And I'm not even a smoker. And it bothers me. It annoys me to no end because it's not the message as nearly as much as it is the attitude behind it. Where it's like, look how healthy we are. We are the people in the prime of our lives, and look at us. We're the best people we could possibly be because we're not smokers. And it's the legislators who are like, we're passing this bill to save the kids. Right, okay. Because kids aren't going to smoke because you passed a bill raising tax on cigarettes by 10 cents. Whoop-de-doo. Well, the new attitude that is everyone's getting high and mighty about is about e-cigarettes now, because this is the new thing. This is the new high-tech method of getting your nicotine rush. And, you know, speaking from limited experience, ironically enough, I hit the cough button because pollen's really bad, not because I'm a heavy smoker, because I'm not. But, you know, speaking from experience, we all want that nicotine rush, right? Like, it is something to behold. It's not something that people just do to do it. There is a reasoning behind it, because you get that nicotine high. I guess it's not really a high as much as it is just a rush. It's like a caffeine rush. It's like having 3 beers. It's not like, and it doesn't even impair you nearly as much as that. It is what it is. It's an own experience. Well, why am I talking about this? Well, there's a new FDA regulation, kind of. The 2017, and this sounds so boring, but the 2017 Agricultural Appropriations Bill may not seem, according to Ars Technica, like a stirring piece of legislation to most, because really it's not. But it raised quite a few eyebrows last week as it passed through the House subcommittee with a key amendment, one which would aim to spare the vast majority of electronic cigarettes from impending federal regulations. The bipartisan effort to protect the burgeoning e-cig market is just the latest in a long, smoldering debate reignited by the Food and Drug Administration's plans this year to begin regulating the new devices as it does traditional tobacco products. Meaning, I suppose, when you buy your e-cigarette from China, it's going to say on the side, smoking kills, and you'll have a picture of desiccated lungs and probably crying babies without fathers, because that's how the FDA markets, I guess, is through fear. The bipartisan effort to protect the burgeoning e-cig market is just the latest in a long, smoldering debate reignited by the FDA's plans this year to begin regulating the new devices as it does traditional tobacco products. The crux of the controversy is about whether e-cigarettes act more as a gateway into or a ticket out of dangerous tobacco use, the single largest cause of preventable deaths in the U.S. And again, I'm not denying that cigarette smoking is bad for you. I can't imagine anyone would ever deny that cigarette smoking is bad for you. But do we really need the federal government to step in and tell us that cigarette smoking is bad for us? Now, I know that's kind of what led to the beginning of us realizing that cigarette smoking was bad for us in the beginning, was FDA studies and such, and different doctors and different organizations saying, hey, look, it's bad for you. But still, do we really need them to tell us over and over and over again? I'm just not seeing it. I'm not seeing the reason behind it. Proponents are arguing that the new FDA regulations will protect children from bad habits, because somehow that is the federal government's job, is to protect children from bad habits. For instance, one of the proposed rules will prevent e-cig makers from using youth-based marketing, like edgy, rebellious ads and candy-flavored e-cigs, which can hook kids into lifelong nicotine addictions and deadly tobacco habits, which seems like a really broad definition, too, by the way, of how we can prevent children from getting into smoking. But one thing that kind of makes me wonder, though, is the reason a lot of kids probably get into smoking is because it has that appeal. And I don't mean just the you look cool when you're doing it. No, I mean it has that, you know what I mean? That appeal. Like, smoking is dangerous. It's bad for you. It's rebellious. The government tells you not to do it. Your parents probably told you not to do it. Your aunt probably told you not to do it. And that's kind of why you want to, right? Is because everyone tells you not to, and you just want to. That's like big marketing there. And I wonder if maybe that's semi-intentional, actually, because no matter how many warnings they put on cigarette packages, no matter what they do, they can have the cashier recite a line to you when you ask for American Spirit Blacks, which, American Spirit Black, they're like, by the way, I'm not advertising for them. By the way, sir, when you buy these cigarettes, you increase your chance of getting lung cancer by 0.5% every day you smoke. And actually, if you buy this nicotine-free gum instead, you can save your life potentially. Come on. How far is the regulation going to go? And I know that sounds like scare tactics, but, it just seems like there's slapping regulation on everything left and right. Because we all know smoking's bad for you. I can't imagine anyone saying, well, the government's lying about smoking. It's actually a pack a day will actually make you realize that the government is run by reptilians. And that's why they don't want you smoking cigarettes, is because as soon as you start to see the theta waves floating in the air, and you start to see that reptilians are actually running the government. When you're smoking cigarettes and you're watching the news and they show Obama on TV, you'll see that he actually has reptilian eyes when he's talking to you. It's not like there's some secret hidden there when you I just hate regulation so much because it doesn't seem to have any sort of purpose. What's smacking a label on the side of it and having ad council ads all day telling you it's bad gonna do? Because people still do it every single day. And probably the numbers are increasing because you have hipsters and you have a new generation of kids. Because that's just how it is. That's how humanity works. If you tell us something is dangerous, we're going to want to do it even more. Are e-cigarettes more dangerous than cigarettes? I don't know. Is tobacco liquid, whatever they use, the e-juice, more dangerous than pipe tobacco? I don't know. I've not read the studies. I don't know. I'm not here to argue if one is healthier than the other one, because I don't know. What I'm arguing here is, do we really need the government to tell us? Is that really the government's job anyway? To tell us that smoking's bad for us? How much money is being dumped into this anyway? It just doesn't seem like a worthy expenditure, maybe. It seems like there's a lot else going on that we could dump our cash into other than this. Maybe it's an example. See, there we go. Maybe it's an example of overreach, or maybe it's just, I don't know. Just people with good intentions, but you know what they say about those. Well, remember I was mentioning theta waves and how when you smoke, you see them? Well, not when you smoke tobacco, but you know what I mean. There's a new product, though, that has got me really interested. And it's not even a product because I don't think they sell it. But this new technology, I want you to be aware of because this could be coming up later in the future. So if you're hearing this now and you see this come up in an advertisement way later, like 10 years from now, make sure to make a mental note now to thank me then, if I'm not dead by then, to thank me then for telling you about it now, because this is really cool. I cannot stress how neat this is. This story comes from Extreme Tech, and we've read about technologies like these before. This is not in concept anything new, but in application, it certainly is. A new research initiative between the University of Washington and TU Delft in the Netherlands, I don't speak Dutch, so I'm sorry, has created a microprocessor which can power itself through stray radio waves and receive programmable updates in the same fashion. Now, hold on. We're going to get into some cool stuff here. We're going to get into some Tesla technology, alien reverse engineered stuff here. Listen, what's around us right now? Air, right? Wrong. Well, yes, but wrong. There's a lot more around us right now. What's around us right now? Come on, don't say air again. That's right. We've got radio waves, background radiation, cell phone radio waves, Wi-Fi radio waves, radio waves. You've got FM radio waves. You've got police car radio waves. You got tons of radio waves, and they're all being generated by very high power transmitters, like the one we use right now. If you're listening to us on AM 1240, you're hearing us through a very high power transmitter. Very, very powerful. If you touch the antenna, you die. That's how powerful the thing is. So there's all this energy being blasted out from all these different sources, cell phone towers, again, sources we don't even know about, right? GPS maybe. All this radio wave being blasted out, and it's kind of being wasted in a lot of ways. Now, it's not hurting us any, as far as I know. Just standing around outside, I don't think you're going to be killed by 12:40 a.m. I hope not anyway. Sorry if you are. But we have all this radiation. We have all this, because that's what radio waves are, is radiation. Anything that emits is radiation of some sort. Not necessarily a bad thing. We have all this energy being blasted all over the place, and we're kind of not using it nearly as much as we could potentially. Think about it. Yeah, you listen to 12:40 a.m., but what if 12:40 a.m. could also provide power to a computer chip? That sounds really weird, but the power and the potentiality is there. I've read before about something interesting called Wi-Fi powered devices. That's right. Instead of having to plug them into the wall, that radiation is being sent out by your router to give you Wi-Fi powers the device. No need to plug it in. How cool of a concept is that? Eventually, possibly, we could be charging our cell phones using that same technology. All the energy is being blasted out. For instance, we got 1,000 watts being blasted out. It's not literally 1,000 watts, you'd be killed, but you know what I mean. All this energy being blasted out and not being really put to much good use, other than, of course, listening to my wonderful, succulent voice over the internet or over radio waves in this particular instance. So there are several aspects to this new breakthrough. First, there's the device, which is called the WISP-5, which is Wireless Identification Sensing Platform itself. The WISP project grew out of an Intel Labs project about 10 years ago. So the concept's been around for at least that long. One of the critical problems with building a programmable device that can survive off of ambient energy, though, is the amount of power required for read and write operations. Because when you're reading and writing to a chip, you're physically causing electrons to go into a computer chip, which takes energy, right? Well, the latest iteration of the Texas Instruments MSP430FR5969 uses a solution. It uses 64K of RAM, ferroelectric RAM, to store data along with 2 kilobits or 2 kilobytes of conventional DRAM. And this is way too complicated for radio. Basically means it doesn't need nearly as much power to write memory, which is a very good thing. Now they're using it for potentially RFID. If you remember, you've ever heard about passive RFID? Remember chip and pin credit cards that everyone talks about, where you can lay your credit card on top of the device and it reads it? Well, what's happening there is the same concept. Or maybe you've got one of those little cards that let you get into a garage, a parking garage. It's the exact same concept. When you put that card in front of the transmitter, it's sending out a radio wave, which is actually powering the RFID chip. The reader then reads the information from that RFID chip, and it lets you in, assuming you have the right code. It's the same exact concept, except used at a much, 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 much longer distance. So if we can make that more efficient and have receivers on our phones themselves, we could potentially charge our phones just from latent energy that's floating around. Now, this doesn't mean free energy, because the energy has to be generated somewhere, right? Nothing's free. Energy has to be generated. It's not like all the power plants will disappear, because you have to actually generate that energy for your phone to pick up. It's not like you'll never pay a phone bill, because your computer will use a lot more power than, or your TV will use a lot more power. Your electric lighting, your HVAC is going to use a lot more power than can be provided from just latent, nascent sources floating around. But the concept is there. And when you hear about it again, 10 years from now, potentially being implemented in phones or being implemented in some device that's going to come out from LG, remember me, because I talked about it 10 years before it ever happened. Pretty cool stuff. I'm very excited about the development of wireless power in general and the possibility of Wi-Fi powered devices, because that seems just so dang cool. So there's a problem, actually, with one of the biggest companies in the world right now, if not, well, it's not the biggest company, but one of the biggest tech companies in the world right now. You've got kind of the big three. You've got Microsoft, you've got Apple, and you've got Google. Alphabet owns Google. Alphabet is Google's new parent company. It's complicated. But you have Microsoft, Apple, and Google, and those are the big three. They make the most money out of anybody, and not counting Sun. But anyway, Apple had a bit of a problem, though. Apple took more than a $40 billion hit yesterday, technically, after reporting its second quarter earnings, and things aren't looking good. Now, this doesn't mean, permanently Apple's going down or whatever. It just means that big companies like Apple can still take a hit. But the interesting thing is this is the first negative earnings or lack of earnings in 13 years. 13 years straight, Apple's been growing, making money, making the investors happy. 13 years ago, the iPod was 2 years old. 2001 is when the iPod came out. Think about that. And before the iPod came out, Apple was almost an industry joke. Apple was not doing very well at all. The late 90s were very cruel to Apple. Actually, the 90s in general were very cruel to Apple. The 80s were booming with the Apple II. And then the Macintosh came out in 1984. Everyone's excited. And then the 90s came around and things didn't look so good. I hope that that cannot be said of the 2010s, because as much as I'm not an Apple fanboy, I don't want a good American company to go away, because Apple is a pretty cool American company. It's a great example of American ingenuity, yada, yada. So there are a couple bright spots, though, against the analyst expectations. But the miss on revenue, according to TechCrunch, and the very weak guidance really hit Apple very, very hard. And it does make you wonder if Tim Cook maybe has something to do with that. Steve Jobs hasn't been around for, 2-3 years now as CEO of Apple? And Tim Cook has stepped in and made some decent decisions, especially about privacy. But it does make you wonder about design decisions when it comes to the iPhone and especially the iPad. Let's think for a minute, just market-wise, about the iPad Pencil or the iPencil, whatever Apple called it, the Apple Pencil. Think about that. Steve Jobs was very clear. No pencils, no pointing devices, just your fingers, because Steve Jobs was all about simplicity. Steve Jobs, say what you will about his character, but he was very smart, and he knew what people wanted. He was good. The thing is, he dies, and Tim Cook comes in, and almost immediately you have a pointing device. Now you've got a stylus for the iPad, which costs $500. What's going on here? Nobody's going to buy that. People spent money on it in R&D. Apple spent tons of money on it. They're going to lose money on it because people aren't going to buy it. Who's going to buy that? Nobody. And it charges off the iPad too, which is even worse. It looks bad. No one's going to buy that. The iPad Pro. Who do you know who bought the iPad Pro? It doesn't make the iPad Pro a bad device. It just means who's going to buy it? I don't know anyone who bought one. I know tons of people with iPad 2s and iPad minis, but I don't know anybody with an iPad Pro. And that's a very big reason why Apple is not doing too well this year, or in this quarter anyway. So investors really want growth, according to TechCrunch. They want profitability, meeting expectations. They want you to beat expectations if you can, but they really want growth. And Apple hasn't grown. Now, again, that doesn't mean Apple's a bad company, Apple's going under, whatever. But it does show the feebleness, maybe, the fickleness of the stock market. It shows how flimsy things can be. You have a juggernaut like Apple, and one little slip up, one bad quarter, and now you're reading all these articles about Apple lost $48 billion. Apple's going down potentially. Look at what Apple's doing. Look at how bad things are. One little slip up. And it seems like Apple is always in everyone's crosshairs because you almost never see these stories about Microsoft. And I don't know, is it unfair? Maybe, but that's how the market works. And that's why it's a perfect example of why the stock market is not something that you can look at as a secure form of investment, because it's not. But you know what is? Local economy. Now, yeah, local businesses go down, but your money's staying local. Whether your business fails or not, that money's going towards local people. We can always go and visit the company we've invested in locally and see how everybody's doing. It's not like I could invest $500 in Apple, fly out to Cupertino, California, and shake hands with Tim Cook. It's not going to happen. But locally, I could potentially do that. Dump $500 into a restaurant and see how everybody's doing. That's the power of local economy. This is Binary here on Hot News Talk Radio. Colin Cowherd up next.